Hello everybody, welcome to Frame Trap. I will be your host, Ben Moore. Today I am joined by Mr. Michael Huber.
Yo!
And the suave Michael Damiani. Mike and Mike.
Yo! Destiny 2? Ready to drop?
You get a haircut, Damiani?
Huh?
Looking good, man. You cut your hair?
I shaved the sides of my hair, and then
Nice.
I cut the front, so it doesn't look right. It is the weirdest my hair. To me, it
really
looks
good.
really weird, but yeah. I was better
I'm
than
too
shaving
scared.
the top. I just did a shave up the side with like a higher guard, and then a lower guard, and then I just took scissors and watched a video and just cut the front of my hair. And then it's like too long, and like it's like really short here, and it's like too long here. You can't tell because you're not seeing the top of my head with this padding it down. So this is the trick. The headset is covering up my mistakes. So
Nice.
Pretty good.
Excellent.
So, with it being the very, very last day of July that we're recording this, it's hot, it's sticky.
Real hot.
Well, I guess it's not really sticky. Humidity is not much of a thing here as it is in the Midwest. But how are you guys handling the heat?
I can't handle the heat.
You
So
can't
you
handle it?
Do you have central air, Huber? Or do you just have like a machine, like on the window?
I have central air in this building, but it costs money obviously to run the AC, so I try not to do it. Only in dire circumstances, if it's like 100 degrees, I'll put it on for like 20 minutes, try to cool it down. But usually I just have this big old fan here that I try to just sit
Is
next to.
that one of those tall
That's pretty
tower
much it.
ones?
Yeah.
Is that from what's it called? That store that went out of business?
So Beth accidentally ordered it, and I tell her it's the greatest mistake she's ever made. It just showed up at our house one day. She was like, "Oh, whoops! I think I accidentally added that to the inbox or whatever, the Amazon cart."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yes!" It's like, this is the best accident ever.
And you just got a sweet fan out of the deal.
Yeah.
So do you have to shut off the fan when you're recording Frame Trap?
Yes. Sometimes I'll like mute my microphone and blast myself for like a minute or two when I really start dripping.
Gotcha.
But yeah.
You're suffering for your art.
This is why we got to get you an RTX, Huber, so you can use
I
RTX
know.
voice.
Yeah.
That is seriously, that's one of the like best things about RTX that I was like didn't even think was a thing until you guys have been using it and hyping it up so much, just how good it is for audio. I thought, I only think about video games, obviously, when it comes to graphics cards. I had no idea that the utility was there. It's freaking awesome.
Yeah, I got a little bit nervous because we were talking about this before the show, but it was like distorting the beginning of sentences, and I'm not sure if that's just something that I need to fiddle with or is a problem with RTX voice or what's going on. So it makes me a little bit nervous, but yeah. It's a cool thing, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Damiani. So last episode, I got to talk about the beginning of my time with Paper Mario the Origami King. I know you've been playing it a little bit. I've actually gotten further, and I have a lot to say about it as well. But to get things started, tell me about how you're feeling about the new Paper Mario.
Oh, so this, I gotta say, I gotta start off, but it was really hard to ignore a lot of the discourse out there. Following Nintendo news, you just get a vibe, and there were so many different opinions on this game. So I was trying to just shield that out while I was playing this. And like most of the other Paper Mario games, Color Splash and Sticker Star I'm going to refer to, I actually didn't think those games were horrible. I enjoyed them. But this one, to me, so far, is much better than either of those two games. I'm really liking... The odd thing is, outside of boss battles, and even in some boss battles, the battle system is probably maybe my least favorite thing in the game. I'm loving so much. Everything else about this game, I actually really like a lot.
Yeah, I do want to talk about the boss battles, or not just the boss battles, the battle system, but particularly the boss battles. I don't know how far you are in the game, but the last episode of Frame Trap, where I was at, I was enjoying it, but I felt like it didn't really have teeth, for a better way of saying it. It was just very cute and charming and pleasant, and I was having a good time. But since then, particularly once you get to the second area, the design of it's a Shogun amusement park, and it's so open, and there's so many things to do, so many fun things to find, not just in terms of collectibles, but like things that you can participate in, that I was really having a blast. And I was like, this is incredibly well designed.
That is
and
where I'm
that
at
is
right
kind
now.
of okay, nice. That is kind of carried true in the next area as well, where it's just a lot more open and way more things to discover. So you mentioned the battle system being your least favorite part. What is it, I think, in particular? Is it just the puzzle solving that is getting tedious for you?
It's not that.
Okay.
I actually don't get angry when I don't solve the puzzle part. I actually don't care too much about if I mess up, like whatever. I'll just deal with it, and I don't get too worked up. I'm swimming in coins right now. I could just cheese everything if I want. I mean, I'm sure I'd burn through it. I feel like I have too many coins right now.
Yeah.
I bought triples of every like weapon I can think that I have access to, just to like, hunker down and have all that, backups to go. It's mostly that it doesn't really diversify. Through two, I'm at the end of the Shogun Studios stuff. I just did the thing that's gonna bring me into the boss fight of that part, and I'm just kind of curious if it's gonna pick up and throw new things into the mix outside of boss encounters, because that's where I think I'm having the most fun, is trying to figure out the actual puzzle of that and different ways to maybe like attack and what's the weakness. They're just so remedial, and they take so long. Sometimes they take so long, especially when the wave versions of them. I just would rather have traditional style turn-based. Just go, get me through this stuff. It's not adding anything meaningful to me at this point, and I dread going through 4 more plus how many chapters left of going through this again and again, because it feels like it's slowing the pace down so much. And these are big zones. We were talking about there's so much to do. It feels so open. I don't really need this. It seems excessive.
Do you get XP for beating battles?
There's no XP at all in the game.
Yeah.
You just get coins, but you're swimming in coins.
So the way that it works, Huber, is coins are sort of your currency for everything. So in battle, if you need some assistance, you can spend coins, and the more coins that you spend, the more toads will help you out. So they might heal you, they might line up some of the puzzle for you, they'll do a little bit of damage to the enemy. So that's like a resource that you can use. You spend coins to get accessories that can help you in battle, so you can increase the time that you have to solve the puzzles in battle, because that's what you're doing. You're sliding things around to try to do extra damage to enemies. And yeah, you buy items and weapons. So like there are spike enemies, and you can't just jump on them with your regular boots, and so you need iron boots to jump on them. And to buy those weapons costs money, or you can find them sometimes in the world, but those break, and so it's like a recurring cost. But I agree with Damiani's point, and I think that the thing that's a little bit disappointing, and it's tough, because I think the puzzle element is actually really cool and gives this game a unique identity, not only in terms of other RPGs, but even among other Paper Mario games. I think the thing that's frustrating is that I kind of reached a point where I was like, it doesn't really even matter if I succeed in the puzzle or not. Like, I have so many mushrooms, so many outs, so many coins that I can just kind of get out of it. And
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, on one hand, I think that's good, because I've talked to people that are like, oh man, the time for the puzzles really stresses me out. And so you can get this thing that just solves the puzzles for you if you want to do that. And on one hand, I kind of appreciate that option, that option is there for people who don't want to engage in it. But I think it's kind of a problem if like there's not a strong punishment for failing at kind of one of your core mechanics, I guess.
I was going to say, that's why I love options in games. Like, give me a draconic modifier, because Dragon Quest XI, same thing. It's like, all right, on normal, you can like breeze through the combat, like whatever, fine. But then if you want the extra challenge, you can turn on those modifiers. So like, there's no hard mode or anything in Paper Mario. It's just a one-off difficulty.
It's just so frustrating. I mean, I haven't been in the game, so I don't know if it evolves beyond this. But in these regular battles, Huber, there's always one of two solutions: line up the enemies 4 deep, or have them side by side 2 by 2 and jump on them 2x2, hammer them. And I would like to see more variation to that. I mean, maybe you have to make the enemies making a wave pattern, or I know it's. I'm thinking of other games. It didn't come out here, but Ni no Kuni for DS actually had a thing about arranging your characters on a grid, basically. And you had to figure out, like, it's not so puzzly as this, but the way you arrange characters would either buff attacks and buff your defensive stuff as well, and also trigger unique attacks based on your formation. And there's not quite that level of depth here. And this is, it's becoming, I see how many turns I have to solve the puzzle. I already know what I'm doing. I'm like, it's easily going to be to push, like, slide them up or down, or this is a ring one. It's just becoming too predictable. And and outside of the boss battles, which we haven't talked about, I'm not feeling incentivized to really do anything other than just brute force at this point. I don't feel any gratification through the battle system anymore. And that's pretty early into the game.
Huber, you were talking about options, and Ghost of Tsushima. We'll talk about this more when we get to that section of the podcast. But Ghost of Tsushima just added a lethal difficulty, and I was playing it before the show, and it really addresses a lot of my issues with Ghost of Tsushima because it just makes everything more valuable. It makes resources more valuable. Before, I felt like I was just swimming in options, and all of them were extremely strong. Whereas here, I feel like I need them more because damage is just so much more extreme than it was in even the hard difficulty. And it's nice that you can just switch that on the fly, right? Like, I don't have to boot up a brand new game to do that. I can just go into options and put that there. And so it's really an excellent addition and solution to feeling overpowered, right?
Totally.
But the boss battles, I actually want to talk about the boss battles because you were talking about more variety. And Damiani, where you're at in the game, it actually does get a little bit better. There are some enemies that throw some kind of fun modifiers into the puzzle solving. And I don't really want to give them away because they're kind of fun to discover on your own. But the variety does improve. And the boss battles, I like and dislike that the boss battles are like, okay, we're going to do kind of unique mechanics specific to this fight. So when you fight a boss, you still have to, like, line up arrows and find your way to the boss and do damage. But when they're vulnerable and, how you respond to their attacks is so far pretty much entirely unique to that boss, which I really, really, really like. The only point where it's become a problem is I was fighting this Firebird last night, and the way I got through it didn't feel great. It didn't feel like I was really utilizing strategy or making, like, great risks versus reward. It was just, you have to beat this boss. You have to know the trick to beat this boss, and then once you know it, it'll be trivial. And so I think that design is a little bit frustrating, where it's kind of all or nothing. It's not like degrees of it. It's like you know the gimmick or you don't. And at the same time, like, I am glad that they're trying to be so unique with the bosses, but sometimes it feels like a little bit too gimmicky for its own good, I guess I would say, where it's not necessarily like, oh, this boss is a nice progression of everything I've learned up into this point. It's just like, oh, it's just a random mechanic that when you know it, you won't struggle at all, and if you don't know it, you'll probably just trial and error until you do, which is kind of a weird middle ground, I would say.
Yeah,
or not middle ground, but design decision.
That sounds unfortunate that it's either all or none.
Yeah.
Especially in that fight you just did, which I'm assuming is the fight that's coming up for me, or one of them. It's nice when fights actually either are a culmination of things you've been teased throughout the previous area. Hey, maybe you should use these things at these times, and if there's familiar visuals, cues, whatever. It says, oh, I remember that. I feel good about this. Or through the course of the battle, you at least even... You feel like you have a chance, and that something is kind of leading you along to draw the natural conclusion versus just raw trial and error. I'm usually not a fan of trial and error when it goes to that extreme either. Yeah.
Damiani, I don't think you're quite there yet, but one of my complaints on the last episode was that Origami King is very delightful. It's very funny. it's very clever and cute. There are a lot of things where you'll go like, oh, that I see what you did there. That's awesome. But I wasn't feeling the emotional connection the way that I did to some of the characters in, say, Thousand Year Door, which I think has phenomenal characters. Origami King actually gets to that point.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Okay.
It kind of... it comes in a way that I was not expecting. And unfortunately, I did have a moment ruined for me, but I still think that it does kind of build up this emotional core between some of its characters in ways that it doesn't sort of let on in the beginning. And I am a lot more invested now than I was at the beginning the last time that I talked about it.
That's good to hear, because the bomb character, and as much as they're trying with Olivia, it's not quite... I'm not feeling any connection. In fact, the narrative for me just serves as, set dressing for the atmosphere and what I'm actually, the context of what I'm doing. I don't feel invested in that. The environments are doing such a good job for me that that's keeping me hooked. But I feel like if any of those environments falter, if the story doesn't kick in, but it's good to hear that.
Yeah, it gets there. What's that?
How's Bowser?
So Bowser is featured pretty prominently in the beginning, and I haven't seen him since. I assume he'll come back in. Pretty sure he comes back in.
Yeah, I remember seeing him folded out.
Yeah.
As the villain.
He's been gone for a while, Huber. Haven't seen him.
Yeah.
Triumphant return.
So, I don't know if you did this, Ben, so I don't want to say too much if you didn't do this.
Yeah.
But there was a certain point in the second area or I abandoned going forward, progressing in that second streamer area, and went somewhere else and started progressing in another area. I did hit a roadblock, but it did allow me to progress a little bit in that environment, and I got to see some a mechanic I hadn't seen yet about
cool.
exploration, and I had a type of battle that I had not had anywhere else outside of boss battles and or remedial battles, and I really liked that, and I think I spoiled myself because I was gleaming a person who does not exist stream, and they were at a certain boss battle, and when I just dropped in, I was like, oops, I should get out of here, and I saw what he was doing, and now that I've done an area, I was like, okay, this might be a thing, so I'm hoping this thing is a little bit more present in some form in the later stream areas, because I got a sense it's more open. And you get to choose your path a little bit more. Your objectives and the way you want to tackle them get a little bit less linear at that point, and it kind of seemed intriguing.
Yeah, it definitely gets less linear. You have a lot of in the third area where I am now, you get a lot of room to explore and just kind of find secrets, and then you get another character who will find you even more secrets, and so it's really opening up in a pretty fantastic way. The other thing that I would say that I really like about it, and I think kind of speaks to the Mario RPG, Paper Mario kind of hallmark that I love so much, is you'll do a lot of battles that are not RPG battles, that are just purely action focused. There are...
That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah. Okay. You'll do things where you just have to run and jump and hit, or you'll be on a boat and you have to dodge rocks and logs and get coins and all this stuff. And so every area that I'm going to, they're really pushing themselves to be okay, here's a brand new thing. Here's this shuriken minigame that you can get involved in.
Yeah.
And there's just they're really cramming a lot in there, and it's full of ideas. And I think that is really, really, really excellent.
I totally agree, Ben. That's what I'm enjoying so much. I almost don't even care if the battle system gets any better. I as long as they keep throwing this type of stuff at me, I'm going to be satisfied. Throw these mini games, these incentives to explore. I prefer and enjoy this more when it's done as well as it's being done here. I easily can overlook some of the other stuff. I know it can end up being a disappointment, but it does sound from what you said, some of the stuff does get better even in the short term after where I'm at, so that's good to hear. Yeah.
I think in the classic Nintendo problem way, it sort of takes a while for the really, really, really excellent stuff to show itself, but once it does, it's been pretty consistent so far. I hope that continues the rest of the game. Right, not done yet, but I've been really enjoying my time. I know there has been kind of some backlash against Origami King just because it's not more
What?
well, it's because it's not more of a traditional RPG, and I think people who love Thousand Year Door understandably want to see kind of a return to form of that. But Origami King has really surprised me. I was kind of semi-positive to lukewarm about it initially, but the more I play it, the more I'm like, no, I really think this is pretty good.
Nice.
In a lot of ways, it's very different. It's definitely not Thousand Year Door 2. But,
Step up from the last couple, though. I assume, right?
Yeah, I played some of Color Splash, but to be honest with you, I barely remember my time with it, which is probably telling there, right? Like that probably says enough on its own. But yeah, definitely enjoy it more than Sticker Star or Paper Jam for sure. But
What was the one on Wii?
Super Paper Mario.
Yeah, that one was okay, I remember.
I didn't love Super Paper Mario. Would love to revisit it because they're definitely huge defenders of Super Paper Mario. But yeah, that one
I never finished it either.
Didn't click with me. We were teasing it earlier, but I want to get your guys' takes on Ghost of Tsushima.
Hype!
Ooh,
Just
Huber.
platinumed it, Ben.
Nice, dude.
Nice, Huber.
This is one of my favorite games ever. I love this game. Holy shit.
So good. Again, just as we were praising Paper Mario, it does so many things well that I care the most about. That I can play this game. I'm taking my time with this game, and I'm savoring every minute. And I'm like you, Ben. Yesterday, I cranked it up to lethal and played my session on lethal. And I think that was one of my complaints is that combat's fun. It's very satisfying. Immediate gratification in terms of the visceral kills and stuff like that. It just looks really cool. But at the same time, I was getting away with I can kind of cheese by mashing block enough in a window and it counts as a parry. Whereas lethal, it's great because things go so much faster. Enemies die faster. You get one shot, but also on the boss encounters the duels, those go faster too, and they're so intense. I fought one of the blue icon type battle ones for the special ability, and it's the one with the dash one, that anime looking move.
Yeah, that move is amazing, by the way. That move is broken.
But them using it, oh my gosh.
It looks great.
I like it. I feel like at points I get in over my head and I have to back off.
Yeah.
It's okay, shit. There's too many people around me. I don't like this. I feel the tension. I feel fear. So I greatly appreciate the addition of this lethal mode. It's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I played through all the way near because the patch just came out and I was pretty much just going through to get the platinum. So then I pumped it up to lethal. But I played through the whole game on hard, and in the early few hours, it was the best.
Yes.
Because you're underpowered. You have to block. You have to parry. You really have to, you can die so fast. You don't have that much health. And then over time, open world style, you just get so OP. I still appreciated throughout, even when I was so OP, you could die really fast, if you weren't paying attention and they take you out and you miss a few blocks and you get taken out.
Right.
But then, near the very end, when I was just wrapping up the platinum and putting it on lethal, so awesome.
Right.
Just having to do the parries again and blocking is so sick.
It's funny because stealth without lethal difficulty, I feel was too much, right? Where I already felt very powerful in combat already, and I felt like I had too many tools that just completely trivial. Smoke bombs can just completely trivialize fights.
Kunai, dude.
Kunai are ridiculous. But with lethal difficulty, because you're so much more vulnerable, stealth doesn't feel like yet another totally powerful option. It's oh no, I need to thin their ranks so I don't have as many guys capable of one or two shotting me, which is really, really nice. And
I never stealthed until the last bit of
really?
the game. Ever.
Yeah.
I would just do showdown every time.
Yep.
Go in, walk in the front door.
Come on out.
Because I just didn't think the stealth was that fun. It's my least favorite part of the game. I think it's
Same.
fine. It's serviceable.
Yeah.
I just don't enjoy doing it, and the RP of being the samurai, not rejecting your way is was just epic.
So Huber, my wish kind of for the game, and they sort of lean into this, is I thought for a second that was going to be more of a choice, because when you sort of betray your samurai ways, you get this moment where he's thinking about everything that his uncle taught him, and I was like, oh, like the more that I stealth kill, am I going to like?
I thought the same thing.
I was freaking out about
yeah,
that.
and I was like,
me too. I'm like, I'm never doing stealth again.
Right, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. And I actually, they don't do that, right? Like they don't go that direction.
Yeah.
I do think the story ultimately ends up going in a very interesting way, and I was super happy with the resolution. But when that moment happened, I got really excited and would love to see, because I think that's such a good idea, right? Where you have this really powerful way of dealing with enemies, but it's dishonorable and the game is responding to it. I just thought that was a cool idea.
Same.
And even removed from that, right? Even though they don't really warp the story around it, I do think it is kind of a neat moment when your character is like, wait, what am I doing? Do I want to do this? That questioning. And they kind of reinforce that in different ways throughout the story. And I like that. I like, not just being like, oh, this Jin is just pure. It's like, no, Jin just has a point of view and he's sticking to that. And that comes into conflict with other points of view, which is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Dom.
I'm only early in Act 2 for mindset. But yeah, I felt that when you return back to your hometown and you can't encounter a character and you ask them to do something for you. That's where I felt the conflict about your principles, like that hit. And obviously, we talked about the flashbacks, but this moment, I was just like, ooh, he's just like acting so matter of fact about it, and seeing the NPCs' reactions about how he's changed. I'm like, ooh, yeah, I'm starting to feel it. A little bit.
I also really loved the dialogue choices. I know it doesn't impact the game that much, like if at all, but just being able to pick between a choice, like react to a character a different way. I just really like that stuff. Just it's such a simple thing, but it really made me inhabit Jin even more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of the stories that they tell with some of the characters are great. There are some that are really engaging, really moving. Something that I do wish, and I'd be curious to get both of your thoughts on this, that they did a little bit more is there are a couple of points. It's a couple or just one. It's not very many, but there's at least one moment in the game where you have to like get to an area and you don't have any weapons. And it's like, oh, I have to think about this differently. Like I have to just carefully stealth through. I wish there were more kind of modifiers to missions like that, or more distinct missions. It felt like a lot of times where it's like, we're rolling up on a Mongol camp.
Yeah.
You can stand off or
out.
Sneak, right?
Yeah,
and it's,
totally.
the camps are a little bit different and the way the enemies are placed is a little bit different. It's not literally exactly the same, but I did kind of wish for more variation within the missions.
Absolutely. The main mission specifically. Just a couple more, maybe like more set piece style things. I don't know. But absolutely. A little more variety there.
I definitely agree. Every single one of those missions start out, follow so-and-so. I'm like, I was like, hey, when is there going to be a mission where I'm not following somebody or leading somebody at the very start? When am I going to get that? And I agree with that. I think I'm getting, so far from where I'm at, I'm getting my fix through the shrine stuff. If a story missions aren't giving me enough variety, but at least the writing and the story that I'm hearing or listening to is good enough that it's compensating for maybe the repetitive nature of what your activities are. I like how, at least in the order I've been doing the shrines, the puzzle platforming type thing that you are doing. I just did one where it was very flat. And it was more of like an actual maze where I was like, it's not that high. I'm just going to climb. Oh, wait, I can't climb. Oh, I'm going in this tall grass around like these tight corridors. And how do I get up there? I got so lost at points. And then I like that. They just threw a different loop at me each time. And I hope they keep evolving like that, because those are some of my favorite things, because they involve just platforming and figuring out where to go. And I love just figuring out or seeing where I can go in this game because there's some impressive geography and it just looks so damn good. Oh my gosh, this game.
Dude,
Holy crap.
It's one of my favorite open worlds ever. Ever to just run around in, to just be in.
Yeah.
It's so pleasant. It's so beautiful. I like how different the 3 areas are. Damiani, I know you haven't been to the third one. The second one's like a little different, and then the third one just feels like a lot different than obviously the first one. Just the use of color everywhere. It's just like so many times I just stop, take a breath, and just enjoy, just staring out at a view. Just sitting there, just enjoying it.
Huber, I think you're absolutely right, and I think Ghost of Tsushima makes me realize like we're probably a little bit too forgiving with video game areas because from Act 1 to Act 2 to Act 3 and all of the different corners of the map, like you nailed it. The use of color is so distinct and dramatic in all of those areas. It's not like you go to a new area and you're like, oh, this is the same. It's not. It feels completely different. And it makes it that much more fun going after and chasing after things and doing those shrines, which also go out of their way to just visually be so different from everything else. Yeah.
And just the way you explore. Like, the wind is freaking genius. The way, like, a little question mark also, if you're, like, running in a new area, and a question mark is near, it'll pop up on the bottom of the screen to, like, kind of notify you, like, oh, there's something around here. I just am so used to so many open world games, like just staring at my mini-map. Sometimes I'm not even staring at the game, I'm just staring at the mini-map. Like, I remember playing Red Dead 2, and because of, like, the way auto-aim and stuff works in that, I can remember, like, missions where you're shooting enemies, just, like, looking at the mini-map and just, like, aiming in the direction of red and just taking them out, or just, like, following the mini-map, or, just opening up the map. Like, the game is so immediate. Ghost of Tsushima is so immediate. You're just, like, in the world.
Yeah, I can't say how much I appreciate that choice that they elected for using the wind. I've seen some people complain like, oh, it makes it too easy to figure out where to go. I mean, that's a whole different argument. I'm talking about, like, keeping your eyes on the screen instead of looking at other things that you don't take in the scenery. And so many games, that's a problem for them because they care more. I mean, it's an important problem they're trying to solve, but they care more about the end user experience of it's accessible. It's easy to figure out where to go. So we got to put up these, like, way markers or lines or whatever on a mini map. Just follow the mini map. Let's follow the mini map. We don't want to get lost because we don't get angry at our game. But in this game, there's so many times where you'd be on a path and you're just following the wind, and then you, like, because you're looking around like, whoa, what's this? I'm going over here. Sorry, wind. I'm going to check this out. And I really like that and appreciate that. And again, going back to real quick to the visual, the colors they use, and maybe you said, Ben, about maybe being a little bit easier on other games before this.
Yeah.
I have not played Horizon Zero Dawn, and I've not played Red Dead 2. But I can't imagine, aside from, like, maybe a technical level, those two games or any other game I've played of open world, like Breath of the Wild, Death Stranding, they don't come close to the aesthetic that this game has. Like, it's just...
Red Dead 2 is really pretty.
It's
older.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Really. Dude, I've been on PC, too. It's crazy.
I feel like this is the pinnacle. I feel like nothing I've seen does it better than this.
And the view distance, right? So many games are foggy. That open world haze, you can't really see far ahead.
Yeah.
I feel like you can see miles and miles and miles away in Tsushima, like so far away.
Dude, really good.
It's interesting doing points of comparison because when I was playing through Ghost of Tsushima, I was just like, this reminds me so much of Assassin's Creed. So after I finished with Ghost of Tsushima, I booted up Assassin's Creed Odyssey again. And I have complaints about the Ghost of Tsushima combat, and I do think it could be better in some ways. I do think things could be balanced and tweaked a little bit better. I do think stealth could be reworked. But just comparing, like, not the stealth, but the weapon combat in Assassin's Creed Odyssey to Ghost of Tsushima, it's not even close. Like, they give you so much time, and too much time in Odyssey to do parries, and the timing is so similar. Like, fights just feel so identical, whereas here, with the stances, with the different enemy types, with the weapons and tools that you have a lot more freedom, and it takes more effort than something like Assassin's Creed, where it is very mashy, and when it's not mashy, it feels like you're just going up against this giant, it's not a bullet sponge, but these really tanky enemies that are just beating you because of numbers, and it's not nearly as engaging. So yeah.
Totally.
And, to the point about clutter and stuff, I love that there's not this huge list of objectives on the side. I love that there's not, like, they try as much and as hard as possible to get unnecessary things off of the screen, and you're just staring at the world. And that really does add a lot, for sure.
Yeah. That's the best. Just the wind. It's like such a simple thing, but I just found myself thinking, like, man, I'm rarely out of the action. I'm rarely, like, looking at something else. I'm just, like, always riding in this world, walking, crawling, whatever you're doing. You're just always staring at the screen. It's awesome.
Speaking of immersion, though, a lot of people complain about, say, Last of Us. Oh, and it's like, oh, the enemies can't see Ellie, or it's ridiculous that, this AI character didn't get attacked here. Something that did annoy me in Ghost of Tsushima is there are times where you'll have AI go into battle with you, and then they just, like, immediately down themselves. It's like, okay, well, now I gotta run over and res them. And that kind of babysitting, there has to be a better way. Like,
dude, Ben, there was one main mission that I did that is really dramatic with a character, and we're, like, charging in, and the character is, like, giving some epic speech, like, yo, let's go, and then he just downs.
Yes.
He's like, in hell.
Yeah.
He's just, like, dead there.
Yep.
And I was just like, terrible time for this character to go down.
You wish you could just say something to them, like, wait, hey, head over this way, or don't do that, or anything, and you can't.
Yeah.
You have no control or ability to really influence them, but you're completely responsible for them and fail the mission if they die. And so, I think that could be tweaked a little bit, for sure.
Even the enemy AI, I think, in some situations, mostly stealth situations, it can get really bad. There's also there's some fun that can be had. Go up a tower, alert everyone, go up a tower, wait on that end of that ladder, and just kill everyone as they come up.
I definitely did that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, really?
Tell me cheese.
Really?
Yeah.
But if for what they're doing, they can't get everything completely perfect on a first attempt.
I really liked all the customization options. Love the armor, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Was really bummed, and this is not because I don't like ranged filth, that you may think it is, but I was bummed you couldn't remove the bow and arrow or the arrows with the Ronin attire. It just felt wrong. Walking around I just want the straw hat and a sword. That's it. I don't want this bow and arrow on my back because it's like warrior vibes, Not like wandering lone samurai vibes. So I usually just stuck with the travelers and the samurai clan armor the most until later you get like the awesome one.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I really love, Huber, speaking of the cosmetics, how dramatic the visual upgrades are for the armor. So if you find armor that you really like the Ronin armor is a good example, where you're kind of like in this like broken little hat, but you upgrade it all the way, and it's just this sweet straw hat that's entirely covering your face. And so visually it does a good job of representing your growth and power, and I think that's always awesome as well. And all of the color options, not just for the armor, but how dramatically you can change the way like your sword looks. It's cool that you can change your bow, that sort of stuff. That is super appreciated.
The flowers, the dyes.
Love that. Yeah, like the cosmetic stuff is just out there as a reward for exploring. Following the bird, you got a new hat, got a new sheath, really cool.
And also, and being able to change it too, the like change appearance of it. So like I really like just the level 1 samurai clan armor with like the rolled up sleeves. Versus like the big, like when I was in a huge battle, I would bust out like the helmet and everything.
I love how much you RP'd around during this game.
Dude, so much RP.
All in.
So much RP.
Dude, shout outs to those fast travel loading times.
Jeez.
Boom.
What are they doing?
Wizardry.
I want to know what they're doing because it's insane. How are the load times that fast and the game looks this good and it's open world? It's nuts. It's absolutely insane.
Probably Yeah.
I mean,
I don't even know.
I am on SSD on PS4, and so I'm sure that's part of it.
Dude, I'm on regular Pro, man.
Yeah, I'm on
and
regular
it's
Pro
lightning
stock.
fast, man.
Yeah, same thing. I can't imagine what they're gonna do. Whatever they follow this up with on PS5, it's gonna be like don't even need a loading screen. Just go.
Yeah.
This like fades into the area. Dissolve.
Loading so fast you already beat the game when you purchase it.
Obviously loved a ton of the quests, but we'll get into all that story stuff on
Spoiler mode, yes, which we're recording soon.
Yes.
I guess to wrap up this conversation, I just want to give a shout out to Sucker Punch because it's been pretty incredible seeing their growth from Sly to Infamous to Ghost of Tsushima, and I really admire any studio that doesn't just beat a horse to death, that gets an idea, really chases after it, really pushes themselves to bring something new to the thing. I have my complaints about Ghost of Tsushima, but I love, just like with Horizon Zero Dawn, I love seeing developers grow and branch out and try different things.
Yep. You nailed it, Ben. It's like, yeah, can complain about some things for sure.
Yeah.
But like the good and the jolly Tsushima Island cozy vibes far outweigh my criticisms. Like, yes, I have criticisms of this game, but like this is going down as one of my absolute favorites of the generation. Like, what a finale.
It's
to PS4.
It's frustrating, Hubert, because you kind of, I think, echoed these sentiments when we were talking about The Last of Us 2, where it was like, trying to have a conversation about this game is a giant pain, and I am feeling that now with Ghost of Tsushima, where it's like, yeah, I didn't like it at the beginning. I said that. I still have very strong complaints and things that could be improved, but my opinion changed over time, and sometimes it just feels like it has to be so divisive. Like, no, you can't change your opinion. You're either in or out.
Don't put Ben in a box.
Well, it's just,
damn it.
I just don't think it's healthy for anybody. It's like, don't you want this to be an evolving conversation? Don't you want people to push back? Don't you want to challenge things? Like, I don't know. It's just very weird sometimes, the dogpiling
Because like I've
that happens.
been so critical of Avengers, Ben, but the last war table they showed, the presentation, Damiani was talking about it. I watched it. Like, okay, I'm receptive. I'm ready to change my mind. It's like, you can change your mind. It's okay. It's okay to change your opinion.
Right. And really all you can do, right, and the best thing that anybody can do is you have to be honest in the moment, right? Mm-hmm. But the moment also recognizes that things change. Yeah. But you shouldn't just because you said something initially doesn't mean you should stick to it if that's not how you feel anymore, right? That wouldn't make any sense. But
dude, petting the foxes, Ben.
Enjoyed petting the foxes.
Like, give me a break how freaking cozy and jolly that is.
Yes, petting the foxes is delightful. I do think there were some times with the fox dens where I'm like, oh man, I wish this kind of like went in a crazier direction. Like sometimes I would do a fox den and be like, oh, it's like 10 feet over this way. Like sometimes they were a little short, but petting them, yes, delightful. Speaking of games and opinions changing, something we can all talk about. Destiny 2.
Destiny 2. Expansion time. Expansion check-in time coming up. I am so glad you guys are playing Destiny 2. This is amazing.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
So to clarify for the audience, Mike and Mike have been doing Destiny 2 streams. And they've been doing that the last 2 or 3 weeks, I think. And ever since so there's I am also playing Destiny 2, and I've been getting really, really into it for reasons that I'm excited to get into, because I've had my feelings on Destiny have been a roller coaster since Destiny 1. It's like love, hate, and it just bounces back and forth. But 2 things. I think being disappointed in the Halo Infinite reveal like weirdly pushed me to Destiny. If that can make sense.
That makes total sense.
And also, that little gameplay snippet they showed of Beyond Light, I think those ice powers looked really cool. And I was like, let's jump into this again. But before I kind of get into my opinions, I think playing together, right, is obviously an excellent way to play Destiny. Damiani, this is your first time, your first experience,
brand new,
with Destiny at all, right? How has it been as a new player?
It's been I've had some Huber and some helpful members of our community carrying me on their shoulders just a little bit there. So they've made it a much smoother experience, I think it would be, than maybe perhaps going solo.
It is overly confusing for new players.
So that's what I was going to say.
Holy shit.
I feel like I'm sometimes would be drowning in a ton of water if I didn't have Huber and everyone else helping me figure things out, or just straight up telling me, go here, go here, go here. It's a lot to take in. I wonder, though, if I was playing on my own, I could take it at an even slower pace. But even then, we've just been going through just the straight up story missions as they've been presented. And it's just taken some time to get acclimated to how this game works. It's definitely clicking now, and it's starting to make more sense. It's just I think it is a little bit intimidating for new players, but any type of game like this, I think that's going to be the hurdle you're going to have to get over. And as you explained to me, Huber, they have done stuff to adjust for the new player experience. Like the first mission's actually a Destiny 1 mission.
Yeah, so they added a Destiny 1 mission, but it's so confusing because you have to go to a vendor in the bottom of the tower to pick up as an item the campaign missions.
Yeah.
Like, it's just overly complicated and very vague. And Damiani is like, what should I even be doing at this point? Like,
I feel
it needs an absolute complete rework if it wants new players to jump in, because like I thought they were going to do that because they took the step to make it free.
Yeah.
Like the base campaign now is just free to play, hop in. But I feel like they need to go one step further and have a nice, easier trajectory.
The layers,
agree.
The MMO layers are so bullshit and so funny sometimes, because an example is I was getting these Umbral engrams and I was like, what the hell do I do with these things? My inventory's full. It's yelling at me. I can't carry anymore. What do I do? I don't know what I do, right? And so I'm not somebody that was keeping up on all the Destiny news, right? Like I was just trying to jump in and enjoy myself. And it's like, oh, I guess I need this machine. Okay, in order to activate this machine, I've got to do this new public event that's way outside my level, but the internet says, like, even if you can't do anything, just write it out because you got to do it to complete this quest. And then you'll activate the machine. Okay, cool, I activated the machine. Wait, now I activated another machine that can refocus these Umbral engrams and turn them into different things. And, like, once you get a hold of it, right, it's not that bad. But just that initial, like, what do I do is awful. It just feels bad. It just feels bad. And it's a hard thing. I think I do have some sympathy with Destiny, where I do think they have tried. I do think they have made strides, and I think they will continue to do so. And it's not all bad, but as you said, Huber, I don't know if they're quite cognizant of what it feels like to be completely fresh. Something that I like that they've done is the way that they've kind of handled, like, okay, you're in new light, your light level 750. There's so much you can do at that light level. Yeah. You're not just locked into, you have to go through this specific campaign or you have to do this specific thing. I love that they're like, whatever you want to do it. You'll be able to make progress. You'll be able to get gear. I think that is very, very, very smart.
And that's why I want a new player experience for Damiani and new players, because, like, there's been no inclination or push for Damiani to do strikes, to do PvP. Like, if they had a nice, do some story missions, okay, now do a strike, see what this is all about. Now do some PvP, see what this is all about. Where it's just like, no.
Yeah, I don't
hop in, grab whatever, do whatever. Sure. We're not going to tell you anything.
I don't even understand why you even do PvP other for, like, gratification. Like, is there a gear ladder that you can earn gear from it, or some kind of currency you can, like, there's just so many systems. It might be a little bit unfair. It is it is confusing, but at the same time, I feel like after enough time, I might be better equipped to say, hey, these things aren't that bad, actually. I'm more familiar with them. Totally. And it's getting to that point. It's a unique situation I'm in, is being back in, like, such a multiplayer MMO style heavy game from the beginning. and trying to figure things out, how much of a hurdle that is, and how much you have to invest time-wise to get to a point where I feel competent enough that I get the basic churn of this game. And I'm still not quite there. I'm starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but you've talked about things we haven't even done yet. And the one, whatever exotic we did, I wasn't even like high enough level. You two ran through and just did it for me, and I was like walking behind, enjoying the sight. So it's like,
yeah.
I know getting carried and stuff, like, yeah, that's fine, but
part of it.
At
part
the
of the
same
experience.
time, yeah, eventually I'll get to that light level and be able to do it myself. So seeing everything that's being thrown at me, it is a lot to digest.
Yeah, like something MMOs do really well, like World of Warcraft and 14, is like, all right, you're level 1. We're dropping you in this zone.
Yeah.
Go do some quests in this zone. Like, there's not much more to it than that.
Yeah.
Where this is like, all right, you're in the tower. You can do the entire, like, anything. Like, go anywhere, do anything. Where it's just like, wait, I need a little bit of direction, a little bit of focus.
To counter that, Huber, as a returning player, the freedom has been really, really nice. Where it's like, up until light level 1,000, you can do anything and you'll progress. I've really enjoyed that because I was like, well, I just really want to get into the campaigns. I want to see what's going on, with the campaign story sense. And so I did that, and then I'm like, oh, I've never checked out Gambit. I'm going to do that. Or I want to spend a night doing strikes. Or you know what? I feel like PvP. I like that. And I really appreciate this design philosophy. I totally think it is fair to say it is overwhelming and wanting some guidance, especially being completely fresh. But as somebody who has some familiarity with Destiny, right, it's just been a while, I love that it's like, man, whatever I want to do, I'm getting stronger.
And that is why I will forever appreciate Destiny 2, Ben. You nailed it. Is because the game can be as hardcore or as casual as you want it to be. I'm someone who really just dives in for a month or two when a new expansion comes out. Maybe gear up to do a raid. All right, I'm good. There's other players who grind the seasons out, who grind out all the exotics, everything there is. So I really think it nails better than most games the accessibility of being able to dive in and play casually, or being able to commit full time and play it hardcore. Like, Destiny does it so well. And just the combination of PvE and co-op, PvP, PvE.
Sorry, Damiani, that point was just like on the tip of my tongue. So if I interrupted you, I apologize.
Oh no, and I want to know how relevant this is. It's just a weird tick, I guess. Coming into this, is I had a misconception about the structure of the game, the world structure, I guess. It's the tower. I mean, I don't know anything about the previous iterations of the game. I thought it was like interconnected zones, and then you could freely walk. I mean, there are some of those there. But I don't feel the sense of like they're connected. Like, I got to the edge of this zone, it flows into this zone. Like games, you get this in Monster Hunter World, you get this in 14, you get this in WoW, you get this in Phantasy Star. Like, every other traditional type of MMO has that kind of world continuity to it. In this game, everything feels so isolated and instanced, and it was a little off-putting to me at first, but now that I understand how it works, I get why they went with this decision. But to what we were talking about earlier about introducing new players, I thought it was gonna, like, that first zone where it's just other players are walking around, that Destiny 1 area, I was like, oh, okay, people just doing their own stuff in different areas. This is a low-level area. I'm gonna get used to shooting stuff, and really wasn't that after that point. And I was just kind of wondering if it ever was that, or if they ever might want to go back to, or try and go towards something like that for the new player experience. Whereas I completely understand what Ben's saying. It's so nice to be away from a game and jump back in. It's like, no, here you go. There's no barrier or any crap where you can't just like start doing stuff. Oh, you're not the right light level. You're so far behind. Good luck. Spend a month grinding to get up to this level to play. That's It's always nice when those gates are knocked down or don't even exist in the first place.
Well, to your point, Damiani, actually, before I touch on that, I want to say, when I was last really into Destiny 2, when we were streaming that raid and stuff, and something that I felt about Destiny 1 and its early in its life was, man, like, there's just not enough to do, and too much of it feels the same. Whereas now, way deeper into Destiny 2's life, returning after so long, it's like, holy shit, this Forsaken campaign is really good. Or,
so sick.
Oh man, these strikes that I haven't done before, like feel really unique and exciting, and there's so many of them, and just kind of jumping in at a more mature point, I feel overwhelmed with stuff to do. Like there's things there's modes and things and activities that I still haven't touched yet, and I'm excited to get to. Like it just feels like a wealth of stuff, which I really appreciate. But kind of to your point, Damiani, something that has always frustrated me about Destiny is it is really hard to piece the story together. It is. I feel like it's especially hard now that more story is kind of being introduced, not just in expansions, but throughout the seasons as well, like little tidbits here and there. And I've always felt this detached from Destiny because it's like, I love the shooting. It feels fantastic. It looks gorgeous. Holy shit. The environmental artists in Destiny are amazing. Like best in class. They're Bungie, hats off. But it was always that like feeling of I think I know what's going on, or I don't, or it was just like, I felt at arm's length. There's this guy, my name is Biff, and I've been watching his lore videos, and it's amazing how much just somebody like sitting down and being like, okay, this is the story of Destiny, has improved my own enjoyment of it. Where it's like, oh, I can actually get invested in this because I know what these names are, these things that they're referencing. Way more enjoyable.
I love the lore. I don't love the storytelling.
Yes, I think that's a good way to put it. Yes.
Okay.
The lore is so awesome in this game. There's a lot of shit going on and a lot beneath the surface. It's just presented in a very poor way. Like really ambiguous cutscenes, a lot of activities that you need to do to piece things together. Like there's story being told in the raid, there's story being told in the strikes, and it's hard to kind of grasp at all the activities and everything you're doing and piece it together in a cohesive way.
Yes, absolutely. So. Yep. That's why I like Forsaken so much, because it was like, okay, this terrible thing happened. Now you're going to go on a quest for vengeance. And it just felt, I mean, obviously, there's more going on to it than that, but it felt like that very simple drive with a character that you knew and that they like very clearly established was more engaging to me than a lot of the other stories Destiny has told.
Agreed.
And I
think most agree.
Yeah. The other thing that I would say that I like about Shadowkeep and the sense that I kind of get from Bungie, and I hope this follows up with Beyond Light, is I kind of get the sense that they're like, okay, we're going to cash in on these mysteries. Like, things that we've been talking about, we're going to reveal a little bit more. We're pushing the overall story ahead further. Shadowkeep kind of gave me this impression where it's like, all right, we're doing this. And I hope that's true. I hope
it is. The next expansion is cashing in on Destiny 1 stuff then. Yeah. So we're going back.
Pyramids.
We're doing some pyramids.
Yes.
Let's go.
Yes. So I really like that as well. When it's not constant like tease, mystery. When your players have a sense of like, okay, we're actually moving forward on these mysteries. It's nice.
Damiani, what do you think about like the classes and just the overall like combat and the abilities and just playing the game?
I mean, I like so I've only been playing one class with I've messed with the 3 different subclasses, I think, at this part. I did the bow thing. I wasn't a fan.
Are you a
of
hunter?
The bow.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. I think I am. I feel like it's I feel like I might sell something, but I mean, I saw the expansion and saw Warlock and Ice or whatever that is. I was like, I guess it's a Warlock class, right, or something. We're assuming.
Well, everyone has the Ice.
Yeah, everyone is getting. Yeah, exactly.
Well, Warlock, I think that's in the right. Chat was telling me something about a Warlock class that I might want to switch to and try at some point because it looked appealing. But yeah, bring out the staff with the like electricity and stuff was just so satisfying. So I like having. The weirdest thing to me about this game is understanding that what matters most when you're increasing your gear, I'm still early, so I'm at a point where I think it doesn't really actually matter too much.
Higher number.
Higher number is probably just gonna be the best off, but that's not what I'm worried about. I'm not worried about like the firepower and the stats so much as I'm worried about the type of weapon loadout I'm using. Because I prefer to have a ranged sniper type rifle as my primary, and then secondary like a submachine gun type thing that can, or something with a little bit more firepower. And then for my the third one, like the whatever it's called, I like having a sword, like a melee type sword to go third person. Because I as you said, like the environments are great in this game, but at some points I like to pull back the camera a little bit and get that kind of perspective. I really enjoy playing that way at points, and using like the cloak to sneak around and like get you're distracting enemies. I get behind them like and then like bye bye, I'm out of here again. Like that's pretty. I'm enjoying that, Huber. I do feel like I need to dabble in a few of the other stuff, and I think I might be ready to try out more of that. It's just the weapon, like I don't know how fixated I need to be on. If you really want to be a sniper, you might need to be like this class or something like that.
That's when things get really fun, right? Is when you finish all the campaigns, you're getting caught up. The end game really turns into building your arsenal, finding those exotics, because like a lot of those exotic quests are difficult and secret. Like finding them is secret. So yeah, building your arsenal and then just having a rotation of weapons that you can use, because so many of them are so good for different activities.
Right.
Like the community loves, figuring out which gun will break which activity. It's like, all right, which can, sometimes there's weapons that can like just destroy a raid. Like, okay, for this boss, we use this exotic and we just burn this entire raid boss down. Bungie nerfed it a week later. Like, so that's like a big part of the end game is building your arsenal.
Something that I really appreciate as I'm powering up and trying to increase my light level to get to that end game stuff once again is I really like the way Bungie has handled weapons, and I know that it's frustrating, Damiani. I think this is kind of what you were alluding to, where it's like, well, this number is bigger, but I don't really like this type of weapon. In a way, I actually kind of like that, where I feel like because I'm, progressing in light levels so quickly, I'm constantly cycling through weapons, and so I have to change how I'm playing, right? It's very different if I have a rocket launcher as my heavy weapon versus a sword, or it's very different if I have a hand cannon as opposed to an auto rifle, and I love that, like, oh man, all of these things are good in different situations, and I have to play differently depending on the weapon that I have. And so I think it's going a long way in keeping things fresh, and I also think it speaks to how masterful Bungie is at making things feel good to shoot, that I'm enjoying that process of cycling.
The bow and arrow, Ben, tell me you've used bow and arrows.
I have used it barely. Weapon. Here's why, Huber. The reason I haven't used bow and arrow more is because, like, as I'm leveling up, it just kind of falls in that awkward place where, like, I'll get one and then I'll immediately get something better. So it's like I'm getting a lot of hand cannons or a lot of snipers or a lot of swords. I'm not getting, like, a lot of bows where I can use them for a long time. But hopefully, once, as you were saying, you kind of hit the level and you can be a little bit more selective. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just interesting how it's just such a different experience for me, where the job / class isn't the sole determining factor of the experience you're going to have in terms of how you play a mission. And in hearing you two now and in the past talk about, especially raids, talk about how using different loadouts also complements the strategy. I'm just used to, like, as long as you have, like, good enough gear, you pick a role, and your role is like, this is the style, this is your play style for this raid, this mission, whatever you're doing. And if you want to mix it up, choose a different class. And I'm used to having a large variety of classes and being able to switch between them to get a unique play style and handling that versus worrying and having to memorize or learn rotations, which is another thing in this game. There's you 3 cooldown abilities. Like it's like, to me, that's
keep shooting.
So far it's like I mean, gunplay is harder for me because I'll say this is a game where you have to aim. Like manual aiming and movement are like, there's no lock on. Whereas in 14 or WoW or not WoW, but like 14 and a lot of other MMOs, there's either like assisted things that like you don't have to worry so much about the aiming. I mean, WoW you do, especially WoW PvP.
Yeah, tab targeting for sure.
Yeah, but tab targeting just like, oh, that's not part of the equation. Worry about everything else around you, and I've always leaned and preferred that type of style of both competitive and cooperative play. So that's also a bit of adjustment here. But in terms of like actually how many abilities you have, that part of it's kind of like baby mode to me. But I understand why, because in real time there's so many other things you have to like deal with in terms of in a first person shooter than you ever have to do in like a third person cooldown based MMORPG.
Totally. I can't wait to do the raid with you guys. We gotta make it happen.
I really want that to happen. Yeah.
Like that's the Damiani take I want.
Right. Raid mechanics.
Raid mechanics in Destiny 2. I need him to see these raids, dude.
Absolutely.
And I guess a lot of them are like 750 light, Ben. Like you can do a lot of the early ones when you just dive in, like ready to go.
Yeah, I think the newest one is 940, I want to say.
Nice.
Something like that. Which I think I'm at 940-ish. I don't remember my exact light level, but like, man, I'm just like flying up there and it feels so good. We'll see how that like final 10 light level crawl at the end.
I think 1,000 is the soft cap, and then to 1,050 or 60. Yep. Don't quote me on that. But the final 50 or 60 is insane.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So we'll see how it feels when we get there. But having a good time at the moment. It would be really fun. I don't know if it'll happen, but it would be really fun to do the raid. Totally. Speaking of Destiny, gentlemen, we're going to do something called a face-off. I'm going to pit two series, and you have to consider their entire legacy, and you have to tell me what you think is better.
Oh.
All right?
Reasonable.
The two...
My voice cracked. So emotional.
The two series that we're doing a face-off today on is Destiny and Halo.
Ooh.
Man, I wish I knew more about OG I mean, I'm inclined to say Halo.
So I want you both to think about this for a second. And again, you're not just saying, I think like Destiny is better than Halo right now. You have to consider history and impact and how things are going and where you see the future, right? Like, so it's not just the past, also the future.
I feel like Halo has been on the decline since Bungie left. I feel like 4 and 5 are so unmemorable. They're so forgettable. Like, obviously, anytime a Halo game comes out, it's massive, right? Like, anytime a new Gears game, even though it's not, like, the original team, it's like anytime one of these games comes out, it's so massive, and it is a big deal. But I feel like Halo 4 and 5 did not have lasting appeal like the original games.
But those original games were...
That's the thing, is like Halo 1 and 2 and 3 and Reach and sure ODST are superior to Destiny 1 and 2, I feel like, in terms of legacy.
You gotta pick one series.
Yeah.
I feel like I gotta go Halo.
What you just said here is exactly how I think, and you've played more Destiny than I have, so if you're leaning towards that, there's no way you're gonna convince me Destiny 2 is better than that.
But Destiny 2 now is big. You know, it definitely has the following, the passion, the passionate community, you know? Destiny has that, like, just obsessive players and obsessive community that just won't stop playing. Like, I feel like everyone at least dabbles in Destiny 2. But,
yeah.
Which series do you think has a brighter future ahead?
I mean, the hot off the presses, right? That brand new news that the Halo multiplayer is free to play.
Right.
That is a huge deal. I feel like everyone now is going to play Halo. It just depends how good that multiplayer is. If that multiplayer is top tier, master class, then Halo's future is looking pretty bright. And Destiny 2, I'm worried slightly when games build for so long and they drag on for so long. Like, we're not getting Destiny 3, they said, for like 10 years or something crazy. I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's what they just said. They're like, yeah, we're not getting Destiny 3 for a long time. Like, we're sticking with Destiny 2. Mm-hmm. Destiny 2 will be on next gen. Granted, Bungie is now out of Activision's thrall. Mm-hmm. It is a new era. That's really exciting. You know, they've been hyping it up. They keep saying, new era, here we go. So it feels like a brand new potential. But still, it's going to be Destiny 2, which is an older game. And it's like, how long can we take this on? It's like World of Warcraft. Like, every time a new World of Warcraft expansion comes out, I'm so hyped. I'm so stoked. But it's still a 10-year-old game or 15-year-old game.
Right.
Halo's doing the same thing, though. I mean, they're going to be the newer one.
Yeah, that'll be 10 years.
But they're also saying it's going to be doing the same
platform,
thing. So,
right?
That's
a great point.
This is really complex because
it's so complex.
If Halo multiplayer is really good, I think they get the advantage in the long term. In the short term, I think Destiny 2 is going to be the more appealing. But if Halo Infinite's multiplayer really pans out and really knocks it out of the park, it definitely has the stepping stones to for the long game surpass and become the more intriguing of the two and have a better future, especially once they start unveiling maybe a content roadmap for whatever they're going to be doing for that game. But at the same point, 3 or 4 years in, when if they get to Destiny 3, I can see this being like a Clash of Titans, man. Every few years, like they trade the blows. The new entries come out.
I think you nailed it, but I feel like then the tiebreaker, because it is kind of so close right now, the tiebreaker is Halo's legacy.
Just start
like Halo 1, Halo 2.
But studio-wise, Huber, you gotta give a shout out to studios because the
it's Bungie versus themselves.
The real winner is Bungie.
The real winner is Bungie. I just wanted to have a brief discussion about it, suss it out, get some feelings out there. I think you both played ball quite well. This Face-Off is brought to you by some wonderful shout-out to your patrons. If you want to find out more, you can go to patreon.com/easyallies. It's a $250 tier, and we shout you out on all of our podcasts. And the way I think we're going to handle this shout-out this time is I'm going to say all the names, and then you two, I want one of you to start leading a song, like, shout out, and I want whoever leads it, I want the other person to try to follow them as closely as you can. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So, shout outs to Blue, Caleb, Togi, Crawford, Elthanas, Greg TheDarkKnight Kettering, and Jessie Blu.
Don't let the days go by.
Shout out. Shout out.
That was not the direction I was expecting, but we'll take it.
This is a shout out to something we did on Destiny 2.
Okay, all right, relevant then. Relevant.
I love it.
Damiani, tell me about Creaks.
Yeah, so this past week on our stream team, the stream team committee, our $15 and up patrons, voted on this game called Creaks. And going into it, aside from the visuals and knowing it was a platform puzzle game, was that everyone said, Ian recommended this to us to suggest for Stream Team. Ian loves this game, and Ian thinks all of you are going to love this game. And that was high praise. And checking it out to vet it during the process of putting it on the final poll, I really hope this one won of the games. I was like, oh, please let this one, especially if I'm going to be playing. I want to play this. And it is a 2D puzzle platformer with, I can't even describe this art style. It's like this dark, morbid, like almost Tim Burton-esque vibes it's going for. It's really unique, well animated. I was just... The beginning, you start off in your bedroom, and you're just at your desk doing some work, and your light keeps flickering on and off. And the animation of getting up and turning it on and off, it's just really well done. And from there, you go down this path, like go down the rabbit hole, so to speak, and they reveal you the whole world. This giant castle-like structure underground in a cavern, and they're just like zoom out like pixel art style. So like you see everything, and it's like, wow, that's massive. And you're climbing down this little ladder to get to the top of it, and they're just like, you're gonna be going through this whole thing. Have fun. And you're like, it's not that big. And then you get into the game, and you see what it's really about. It's about figuring out contextual environmental clues. They throw ever increasingly different kind of like wrenches into the works to like kind of keep you on your toes. And I really like that where enemies aren't necessarily, you don't fight enemies in this game. They're part of the puzzle. They're part of the solution a lot of the times. Like the very first enemy are these robotic dogs. They look like from Black Mirror, that episode of Black Mirror. Have you seen that one, the black and white one? But when they're in the light, they turn into dressers. Innocent little dressers you can push around. So you gotta like lead them around, like string them along, and then but they know better. They won't just run into a light. They'll cower at light and back off and stuff. So that's like it's like, hey, now you're gonna have to use like light, and maybe you can push light at them. Oh, and then there's another enemy, this tentacle jellyfish looking enemy that's introduced. Like, what the hell? Oh, the dogs are scared of it. If you get them to run at the dog, they push the dog a certain way. Now it starts adding all these layers, and it just does not let up. And sprinkled in throughout there are these little bits of story. There's like, you peek through these creaks. Sorry, these cracks, I guess, not creaks. You peek through these cracks in the walls, and you see these bird race. And it's an
Did you say bird race?
Bird race, like these bird people.
Oh,
like
okay,
a race of bird characters.
Gotcha.
Sorry, no. They're like, it's an unintelligible language. You can't make out, but you can't tell if they're good or bad. And then you finally run into them, and they seem kind of good. And there's this giant monster that's constantly threatening the environment you're in by breaking walls, and kind of this ominous thing going on. It's just all this stuff going on, and at the heart of it, it's just these rooms, these standalone rooms that you have to solve how to get past them and advance to the next room. And you gotta keep moving that way, and that's the bread and butter of the game. It's really simple, but really well executed.
Damiani, the enthusiasm with which you like painted that image was so captivating. Like, I could tell how like kind of in love with this thing you are, and I think that's really, really cool. It sort of sounds to me like kind of an Inside, where it doesn't do a lot of like overt storytelling, where there's people talking to you, or you're picking up like, notes or anything like that, where you're just kind of stuck in this sort of bizarre world, and you slowly piece together what's happening. Is that accurate?
Yeah, the clues are mostly from the environment, the different types of rooms you start going through. You pay attention to like the backgrounds, like, this looks like a disheveled like living quarters of some kind. Was someone living here? Then you move on. There are these like paintings that you can interact with. There's no dialogue or anything like that, but some of them you just crank them up, and like a scene plays out. It's like the British puppet style. I forget what they're called. But yeah, those like British state. What?
A marionette or whatever?
There was like there's like a name and a name, something and something. I forget, like it's a guy and a girl's name. Anyway, not important. But some of them are interactive. There was a part where Blood was trolling me. It's like, I think Damiani fell asleep. And I'm like, what are you talking about, Blood? I'm watching this. I'm engaged. And he's like, why aren't you hitting any buttons? And I'm like, what do you mean? It was like a fight scene where like two knights, and you were supposed to use the analog stick and the button inputs to fight back. And I was like, wait, what? I wasn't like, they were on the side. But I was just like, watching it. I've been trained. Oh, this is like a cutscene type thing. And some of them are interactive, and some of them have some clues to some narrative elements about like some of the bird people are in these, and you're like, what happened to this world here? So it's definitely the type of storytelling. It's very intriguing, very captivating.
Sounds awesome. I just looked at some screenshots. It looks rad. Gives me definitely an Inside or Little Nightmares vibe. Do you guys ever play Little Nightmares?
Yeah, I really like Little Nightmares, actually. I just want to apologize to any viewers really quick. When my headphone cord like got caught on my chair, and I just bent down to loosen it, and when I came back up, Zoom like wasn't recognizing my face, so it was just a void.
Podcasting at home.
Yeah, it was just a void for a second. I didn't leave. I didn't poof out of existence. I was right there. Just Zoom was freaking out. I think the virtual background was having a weird effect. But Damiani, with these type of games, right, like Inside and Limbo, brilliant games in a lot of ways. Something that I get frustrated with sometimes is you sort of get into these situations where, like, oh, I have to run away from this thing and I have to, like, use this specific path, and if I don't do that, I'll die instantly or something. And so it ends up, there's some trial and error, and that can be a little bit irritating sometimes. Do you feel like the way these puzzles are designed, that their trial and error isn't a problem? Like, you have room to properly explore and fail and have fun?
Yeah, I think as the puzzles aren't necessarily complex, there could be a lot of moving. There aren't that terribly a lot amount of moving parts, but they can get. They get to a point where you definitely are. I have to fail a few times to figure out. I need some more information about this room, so I gotta fail. I gotta. It definitely encourages you just try moving over here, and it's very clearly marked most of the time. If you're too close to an enemy, you're done. It's an instant death. You cannot fight back. You fail. You just reload at the start of the same room, and you just try again. So we were talking about earlier about difficulty and stuff. One of the things I really appreciate is games that just like reload you immediately into an instance like that, because it would be a detriment to this type of game. So really appreciate that. I think it's really nice because there's a lot of switches you can flip, not just lights, but platforms will move up and down. There's like multiple paths. So in a room sometimes you gotta like figure out, like, I gotta go down a ladder, then through this corridor. Sometimes like these dogs are the first things you come across. They chase you only when you're in a certain range, but then they walk back to a mat. And then sit there. So sometimes you gotta like figure out, if I move them this far and they start walking back, if I race to here, I can trap them in these areas. So yeah, there's definitely trial and error, but it never feels frustrating. In fact, I feel like the puzzles are pretty good, because towards the end of our 2-hour stream, I was really feeling like exhausted. But we had Jones and Bloodworth with me, and Bloodworth at one point's like, I got this, Damiani, just do this. So it was really nice to have like someone else figuring it out. Obviously, you're playing this by yourself; it's not multiplayer. But at the same time, I think it's very fair. I think it is they're very well designed puzzles, and I think they feel very satisfying. And I think very early on, you start to get. I think no matter what room I've seen so far, you clearly figure out pretty quickly what you ultimately need to do. It's just how much time it's going to take you to figure out the sequence of things is the real challenge.
Man, Creaks sounds awesome, and it's funny because I think Brendan Jones and Daniel Bloodworth are two excellent companions for that type of game. Both very level-headed, and just Blood especially being like just very confident and being like, no, this is what you need to do. I could see them being good co-pilots for sure. But no, sounds awesome. Really, really does. I kind of had a similar experience, Damiani, where one of the games that I'm bringing was also part of a group thing that we did, and that is Grounded.
Nice.
Yeah. And we did this on a group stream. It was Bloodworth, myself, Brendan Jones, and Ian. And it's interesting because I think it's a promising game, definitely rough around the edges. Definitely, it's in a game preview phase right now, right? So it's not fully out. Definitely bears mentioning. But it's one of those things where I think slight changes can have a big effect. So the bulk of Grounded is kind of that survival style game that you've probably played to death at this point, where it's like, okay, you've got to gather resources to make weapons. Those weapons have durability, they'll break, then you'll have to go and find more resources to pick them back up. Certain resources can only be acquired with certain types of things, right? Like you might need a hammer to get through this clay or an acorn or whatever. And then you can go and you can build bases, also using resources, and you can upgrade the defenses of those bases, but bugs can come down and knock this stuff over. So all of that stuff there, like, very familiar, right? And to be honest with you, I don't love those kinds of games. One, because I think they've been done a lot, and two, I just always get really frustrated when I want to explore and it's like, oh, I'm hungry. Like, I guess I'll have to stop what I'm doing to go find a bite to eat, like, and just so many systems kind of pulling you away from whichever direction you want to go.
Quick shout out to Among Trees, the most accessible game ever like that, Ben.
Oh, nice.
So jolly. So jolly.
And I don't even think it's necessarily a problem with the game or the genre. Like, that's just a personal preference. But I think Grounded really separates itself with this Honey, I Shrunk the Kids vibe being so fantastic. Like, it was really cool going and seeing, like, just a baseball and trying to be like, oh, can we build a house on this baseball? Or having a ladybug be so intimidating, right? And I think that premise, as well as, like, how adorable it looks, really goes a long way. I also think the world is pretty smartly designed, where it's huge and you can get lost, and there is incentive to put down, like, markers and that sort of thing, but it's not so big that when you have those moments where you're like, oh, I have to go back to that place, that it's like a huge pain in the butt to get to. Like, it's designed to the point where it's like fun to kind of get lost and find your way someplace, but then when you need to keep returning there, it's quick enough that it's not a burden. So I think all of that is good as well. And I liked what they're trying to do with the storytelling. And I think a huge benefit of these types of games is when you have those moments where you just sort of naturally uncover the story and it's not force-fed to you. Like, Jones and Blood and Ian all went off and they found this lab and they found this talking robot, and I was back at base and they were just describing it to me, and it's like, oh, whoa, I can't believe you found it, right? And
Love that.
of course everybody's going to find that, right? But not knowing that and not having it shoved down your throat made it feel kind of like this magical moment as well.
Yeah, because when, I feel the same way as you've been with most survival games. I really like Don't Starve, and Among Trees is a newer, comforting, accessible one. But solo, they can just feel really depressing. Just really, really depressing, lonely games. And I know that's kind of the whole point, is like, all right, you got to survive. But I feel like with this, just the jolly nature of being, shrunk down Honey, I Shrunk the Kids with co-op, with having friends to talk to banter with, to explore together.
Yeah.
I think that's really awesome. And I want to play this game.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think in a game that is supposed to be punishing and your mastery of those systems is kind of the point, bugs that hinder your progress feel not literal bugs, but like game bugs that hinder your progress feel extra awful. So a good example is when you die, all your backpack has all of this stuff that you're carrying around. One time I died and it's like my backpack just like fell through the earth. Like I just couldn't get it. And it was
Damn
like,
it.
oh man, like it's already so easy to like have things destroyed or to lose something or to die or whatever. And just that like extra punishment that felt like it was outside of my hands. I was like, no. The other thing that I think needs to be tuned a little bit, and I recommend you go watch the stream if you can. Not you guys necessarily, but the audience. Is there'd be times where somebody would die, right? Like a wolf spider came, and it was an incredibly exciting moment where it's like, oh god, no, the spider, run and hide. But then somebody would die, and the spider would just like hang on their corpse. So it's like, oh, sorry, like we can't go get you because this enemy just won't move. And
body camping.
Right. And you can't go get your stuff because the spider is there. And so I think that could be tweaked a little bit for sure. But really, really cool. Tons to find. It was awesome when Blood found Rash from Battletoads, like just a little action figure. And nice. We went and got that. And so, yeah, man, it's the kind of thing where. Oh, sorry, Damiani, did you have a question?
No, finish your thought because this question is about it, but like I wanted to ask this towards the end.
Sure, it's the kind of thing where I think my preference is against this type of game. Like I probably wouldn't have gone out and spent, $30 or $40 on it or whatever. But the fact that it's like, okay, Game Pass, it's just there. I have Game Pass. I think that is so phenomenal, right? And really opens you up to experiences where if there was a higher barrier of entry, you probably wouldn't have given it a chance.
Somebody just said that on the Easy Allies podcast, Ben.
That's what I was.
Somebody wrote in and said, "Yo, I don't like these games, but it's on Game Pass, so I played, and the next thing I know, I'm 15 hours in."
Yeah.
Thank you, Game Pass.
You partially answered like that. You answered that question. What came up? Because I'm curious. Because you're the fourth of the three of the four people who were part of the Grounded stream. We're on the Easy Allies podcast recently, the most recent episode, and we talked about Grounded. And this question came up, but there was also a point raised by Brandon Jones, and I would like to pose it to you, seeing that you had hands-on with it, about the current situation we're in, that this game might have more room to breathe and get some attention because there are fewer releases happening right now. And this game, because apparently this game was huge on Twitch. Right now it is. It has like a lot of people watching it. And so when you mentioned the stream, I was like, yeah, there we go. Like, it's very well watched right now. And you mentioned also it's on Game Pass, which kind of, answers part of the question. That's like a very low barrier to get into. So my question is, do you think this game is benefiting from the current situation, and or otherwise, do you think this game would have, had a fair shake if we were in like a normal situation where maybe more heavy hitters were coming out and it got drowned out?
Man, it's really a good question, and I think it is, I don't have hard numbers to back this opinion up, but I think comparing it to Steam is good, because a lot of times there'll be a game that'll come out on Steam that'll kind of float to the top of the top sellers list, and it'll be hot, but it'll only be hot for like a minute. And variety streamers will kind of grab hold of it, they'll stream it for a little bit, and then it will eventually fade. I think with Game Pass, that will naturally happen, right? Where because there is a low barrier of entry and everyone can check it out and people are looking for things to stream, I do think it is possible for it to get hot for a minute. I don't necessarily think that translates to, a strong, consistent population over a long period of time. But even so, I still think that's a good thing, right? Because whatever you can do to get your game any attention, you're probably immensely grateful for, right? And it's a huge, it's maybe not always exactly the way that you want it to go. Like, I'm sure all of these games want everybody to play them for as long as possible, but I think any attention that you can give them is probably good, and they may not have gotten it otherwise. I just don't know if you say, hey, here's this early access game preview version of a survival game, it costs, let's say $30. I just don't know if it would have gotten the attention.
Yeah. I feel like the same way. I think that was a really good answer. It was interesting because Ian also added a statement about how, because this is Obsidian Entertainment, and they made it very clear from the get-go that this isn't meant to be a huge. This isn't Cyberpunk. They made the joke. If you want the biggest game of the year.
Great joke.
And Ian made the point about that was very smart of them to set expectations correctly for this game. They talked about it's going to be buggy. Like, there are going to be glitches. There's going to be a game that's going to grow and take time to get to a point where we feel better about it. And it seems like that is a good mentality, and it was a good decision to make going into this type of game.
Damiani, I think that is an excellent point. They did set expectations, and that self-awareness, man, it really goes a long way, because like, you think about how many games are marketed, and so many times it's like, we're the best thing ever, we're doing something that no one else has, and it's like, no, like, you're another battle royale game, and you not having some self-awareness of that fact makes me want to play you even less, right? And so, attitude really, really affects perception, and I think just someone's ability to be receptive towards something. Yeah.
Was it Rogue Company? The most recent one, Huber. The one that
dude, I streamed that game. It's fun.
Yeah, but like, their marketing and when we saw trailers, they're trying to make that thing such a big deal. I feel like that was like the opposite of this, where hey, you try like I mean, when you played it, it was it definitely wasn't bad.
I was expecting like a hardcore Twitch streamer competitive thing, and it's like, oh, this game's actually like really forgiving and really easy to dive into.
Yeah.
I feel like they definitely should have marketed it that way.
Gotcha.
Because it was not what I was expecting. I was expecting like this is going to be nuts, highly competitive, and it's like it's a competitive game, of course, but easy going, like team based, very very chill.
Huber,
yo,
tell me about Neon Abyss.
Neon Abyss, dude, jolly little game, rogue light game. Roguelite. I don't really even know the difference between those two terms anymore. I've played a few hours, streamed it, and then played a little bit on my own. So, if you don't know what it is really colorful, bullet hell-y, not too bullet hell. There's some bullet hell-ness to it. Bullet hell, roguelike, platforming, procedurally generated game. And it's really fun. So you start out, every run, it's definitely easy to dive into because it's like you just do one run, one more run type of game. And basically you go through and there's a lot to this game, but it's also not a lot. It's like a really big, small game, if that makes sense. So you go through and there are like there's 5 main end bosses. And to get to the boss, you have to go through like 4 or 5 levels, more as you go on. But like say you're trying to kill the first main boss, which I've done. I'm on the second main boss now. To kill the first main boss, you have to go through 4 levels at a time, and each level has a boss itself. So you have to beat like 4 in a row, then you get to the final level, and it's the final boss. When you die, you're done. You go all the way back to the beginning. So very punishing if you don't like this kind of game. You're dying a lot, going back, redoing it. The roguelike stuff comes in the form of upgrades, but I'm not too keen on these types of upgrades. This is why I really love Rogue Legacy more than any other roguelike, because in Rogue Legacy, you're getting meaningful, purposeful rewards like, all right, you're stronger now, or you're doing more critical damage, or whatever the hell, like stat upgrades. These upgrades are like, you have the chance to get new items now. Like, you unlock an item that can drop more health, and it's like, well, there's so many items and weapons on a run anyway, chances are you're not even going to see that thing, and you still have kind of the same chance of getting through the stage as you did earlier. It's like a little more skill-based rather than stat-based. And when you're dying a lot, like, I like knowing, again, like in Rogue Legacy, I like knowing that at least I'm getting progress and my character is getting stronger and that I have more of an edge every single time. It's like when I first realized that in Demon Souls and Dark Souls, it was like, shit, I'm dying a shitload, but like, dude, if I just go grind a little bit and get like 1 more strength point, like even 1 extra strength, I'm a little stronger, I have a better chance,
Yeah.
So I like that stuff. These upgrades feel a little more random, a little less meaningful. Granted, they are better. Like, the items I'm unlocking through this upgrade system seem powerful, but they're not game-changing yet.
Huber, this game is reminding me, I don't know if you remember Rad from Double Fine.
Yes, I played a little bit of Rad. I like this way more than Rad.
Okay.
I dropped Rad pretty quickly.
I also dropped Rad pretty quickly, and it wasn't even because I didn't like it. I did like it, but it just wasn't different enough from other similar games for me to really stick with it, I think. And, that's a tricky thing, I think, that a lot of these games fall into, where they're kind of coming into crowded genres, and it's not even necessarily that they're bad, it's just that they're not good enough to really pierce through the noise, if that makes sense. Do you find like Neon Abyss does have a strong enough hook, it is good enough to really kind of rise above?
For me, because I'm always playing video games, Ben, like, you know, I'm just coming off of Last of Us and Ghost of Tsushima, so I like now having my little side game.
It's coming at the right time.
Yes, I love roguelikes. I love this genre. I love the art style. The art style is beautiful in this game. And it's a game I can pick up and play. It's a game I can jump into for 20 minutes, or if I want to like do a ton of runs, I can play for a few hours. But if I have just a little bit of time, like, okay, I can jump in for 20 minutes. I love having a 20-minute game at my disposal. So it's really fulfilling a need for my gaming habits.
Gotcha.
So, and there's on the upgrade tree, there's characters you can unlock that have different abilities, which I found cool. I haven't unlocked anyone yet. There's like a stuntman on the first thing, and apparently he can do like tricks, so he handles differently than the other characters. And just going through the stages is cool. Like, they all look the same kind of, which is a letdown. It's an indie game.
Right.
The music kind of gets grating. It's like burn it, but thumping kind of soundtrack gets kind of grating. But just going through the levels is really fun because it's that risk versus reward where it's like, okay, I immediately found the boss room. Do I want to go in right now? I have full health. I have full shields. Like, should we do this? Or should I explore more? Should I go find the secret? Should I get stronger items? Like, there's a ton of items, ton of weapons. The main currencies are gold and crystals. Crystals can unlock treasure chests that you find. There's a shop that you have to unlock the door to get into with crystals, and then you spend your gold on the items in there. So there's just a lot to unpack, but it never feels overwhelming because there's not a lot of controls. There's jump, shoot, and grenade. And grenades can even be used to unlock, like, rocks will house treasure chests. So it's like, shit, do I want to use my grenades for attacking people? Or do I want to use it to, like, blow open this rock to get an item? So just really cool pick up and play, fun game. I really like it.
That's really important, and something that I find that Hades does really well. Where
can't wait for release, please.
with roguelikes, I feel like sometimes when you play them and you know that the punishment for death is starting over, you have to be very, very careful because if you're so hard out the gate, just mentally you're going to be like, well, I don't stand a chance. Like, I'm not. You have to give players a little bit of hope, but at the same time you can't be too easy that it's not immediately engaging. Like, you need to make the fear of death immediate. And I think Hades does a really good job of that, where it introduces things to you in a way that it's not over tutorializing. You're just kind of learning as you play, but it's straightforward enough at the beginning that you can get comfortable and feel good about the controls. And then as soon as you get comfortable, then it really lays it on, and it's kind of like the perfect time to do that. Yeah. So interesting. Sick. I believe. Yeah,
the bosses are cool. They look really cool. They're just like big blobs and stuff.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I really haven't taken a look at it, but I believe it's on Game Pass, right?
I believe it is on Game Pass. Yes.
Okay.
It's on Switch too, I think, and PS4.
Nice.
I think it's on everything.
I'm not sure if it's on Game Pass, but if it is on Game Pass, it's like, oh man, why not check it out? Even if it's just for a night, what do I have to lose? Yeah.
Looks cool. Can I ask you a question, Hubert? I don't know if you've seen it yet, but I'm reading something here, and I'm just like, I haven't heard about it yet. There's a review quote that says, blah, 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 and Pokemon-style mechanics.
Dude, I saw. So the reason this game was even on my radar, because you get the eggs. I forgot to tell you. Yeah, you find eggs throughout the game. Every run, eggs is a huge thing, and the more enemies you kill, they hatch. And sometimes when it hatches, it'll be empty, but then other times it'll hatch and it'll be a companion. And you can get a ton of these things. It'll be like a bear that shoots fireballs. It'll be like just a shuriken that goes around you and attacks enemies.
Hubert, this is awesome.
Yes, that was one of the main things. Sorry. And then, and the trailer that they showed during like Day of the Devs or whatever, put it on my radar. There's like all these mini games like fishing that I haven't got to. I think that stuff unlocks when you unlock the skill tree, because one of the things on the skill tree was like hidden rooms can be a piano room where you like play the piano, and I'm like, what? That doesn't sound meaningful. So I haven't unlocked that upgrade, but yeah, pretty cool. A lot of variety. in that stuff that I haven't yet seen. Because I'm only on the second world. There's 5. And it's fun too. Where do you guys stand on this with roguelikes, where it's like the RNG? Sometimes you can be so OP with the items you get, but then other times it's like, shit, I'm just not getting any drops. I'm feeling weak. Like, this whole run is a wash. Do you guys like that? Or does that... Because I like that, because then when I do get really, really powerful, it feels valuable. Then I'm even more afraid to die. So this game definitely has that vibe.
Yeah, I felt that with Binding of Isaac for sure, and it can be really satisfying. But going back to a game that you mentioned earlier, I think Rogue Legacy does it very, very well, where you get the best of both worlds, where you are getting continually more powerful, but then it's super fun just playing as a descendant that has some fucked up thing about them. And so, I don't... And like, you're not... You have a choice there. You could choose who you want to be, but it's a limited pool. And so, man, Rogue Legacy really felt like it kind of threaded the needle perfectly in that regard. But yeah, it can be super fun. It just depends on how it's handled.
Yeah, I love it in FTL, but that's, that style.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, cool little game.
Cool little game. Hot little HOTTAKE! Today on HOTTAKE, we're going to be talking about Halo Infinite. And I want to preface this by saying that I know that we, did the Xbox showcase, talked about Halo Infinite there. On the podcast, we talked about it. Brad and I did I was in a Discord call with 343 looking at the game again. We talked about it there. But I care a lot about Halo. I know Huber cares a lot about Halo. And I think Damiani has a lot of really good takes. And so some things have happened since the podcast conversation with Halo Infinite, where Digital Foundry released a video kind of looking into why the graphics look the way that they do. Obviously, we mentioned it earlier, but the multiplayer in Halo is going to be free to play and up to 120 frames on Xbox Series X. And so to get this conversation going, before we progress and I ask more specific questions, how are you guys feeling about Halo Infinite, and how much do you feel like it matters for the series in general and for Microsoft?
I'm feeling okay because, full disclosure, I love Halo, never been obsessed. You guys know I love Sony. I'm not a fanboy. Please don't call me a fanboy, because I love all games on all systems. There are no, console wars or party lines for me, but I just gravitate towards Uncharted and God of War and those games. So my investment is probably a lot less than you, Ben. So I'm way more open, a lot less critical of what a Halo game needs to be. So yeah, I personally thought it looked cool. I liked the art style. I know it's been so divisive, and so there's been so much controversy behind it. But I do want to bring up something, we all know visuals aren't everything. And I saw in the early days, people were comparing Halo to a screenshot of Killzone Shadowfall.
Right.
And Killzone Shadowfall is so subpar of a video game. That game looks beautiful, but it's just not fun. That game, I don't even think Shadowfall's swimming in sevens. So, for all this vitriol and hate to be Halo's dead, it's over, I'm way more concerned about how you play the game and what it feels like to play the game rather than how it looks.
Definitely. So, to play devil's advocate here, right, Halo Infinite has been in development for a long time. It is something that Microsoft has teased for a long time. Halo is a premier franchise, many would argue the premier franchise for Microsoft. And so to have it come out and to visually underwhelm, do you think, even in spite of all of that doesn't really matter, it just matters how it plays?
Well, I think there's definitely, because I go through this with Fortnite, Ben, there is a massive amount of people who just don't like cartoony visuals. Straight up, they're immediately out. They want a realistic, gritty look. So I think the noise for this is obviously going to be louder because it's going for a specific style that looks a little more cartoony. So I definitely think that had a small part to play in the amount of noise. But, the internet has a short memory. Mm-hmm. It's, like a wind on the breeze. I feel like if this game comes out and it plays amazing, all will be forgotten.
Okay, so that was actually one of the questions that I wanted to get into, and something that was interesting watching the Digital Foundry video about Halo Infinite, which if you haven't seen, I highly recommend. Mm-hmm. They were talking about how much lighting and how Halo Infinite was affecting the way that things looked. And with different lighting, it could look dramatically different. And that was very interesting. And they're going to add ray tracing later on, right? And so this is definitely a thing in motion. But do you think, like, because it has been a strong first response. I think that's undeniable. Like, with whether you like it or dislike it,
yeah,
the opinions have been strong. People are talking about it. It is a point of conversation. Do you think that if there is a positive showing in the near future, or that it launches and it's received really well, that initial impression will just completely fade away?
I don't know if completely, but I think big time, because Avengers, the newest war table, was a huge improvement. Like that first one they showed with Thor, a lot of us were like, what the hell is this? Fighting robots. And it was like this new showing, when they were showing so much, it's like, okay, this is looking a lot better. So I think perception can change dramatically. Absolutely. There's just so many factors too. Like, dude, when we saw the Horizon Zero Dawn 2 trailer, I was super underwhelmed because it's streaming over the internet. Like, in motion, playing this 4K HDR, all that looks so much different than a stream on your computer. Like, how can you even judge graphics at all until you're staring at it on the actual hardware with your own eyes? Like, so I reserve judgment.
Sure.
Big time until I can see it in motion, see it in action.
Yeah, Huber, I think that's a very level-headed response. Before I throw in the next part of this, Damiani, I'd like to know how you feel.
That was a pretty good talk about the visuals. I mean, things can change. I don't think I need to say it. I don't really need to get into it anymore other than I thought it was, for something trying to showcase, if their goal was to showcase next gen, it was underwhelming. Even hiding, even it being an open world game. We just spent a lot of time talking about Ghost of Tsushima, and I'm like, yeah, no. You have a ways to go in that department, but as you said, like gameplay design will trump graphics anytime. And it could be amazing when it comes out. Maybe they just had a bad showing, as you said, Huber. We had that turnaround a little bit with Marvel's Avengers. Plenty of other games have had turnarounds and showings before they came out. I just think what they showed off from a perspective of like what you'll be doing moment to moment didn't look any. I was like, how much time did you spend on this? This literally just looks like Halo again, the same old Halo. Is this supposed to be special? Is it supposed to be anything different? Oh, I can do a grappling hook up there. That's cool, but that it? And I was like, they did not sell me on the concept of any open world mechanic. I was like, Destiny 2 stuff is as big as some of this stuff. Get out of here. I was like, what are you talking about? Show me more, or some concepts. They didn't do anything to illustrate that point. Basically, on the concept of selling as an open world and being unique, I think it completely failed in that regard. They've not illustrated that point yet. The sooner they can get to that and showcase why the open world benefits Halo and how you're going to be enjoying it and it's going to make it feel different, I think people will start to turn on this game in a positive way. And they just did not. I think this failed miserably on that regard from its first showing.
My biggest concern this whole time with the new Xbox has been this whole cross-generational thing. Like, oh, everything will play on Xbox One. And it's like, well, is that going to compromise these games? Is it going to hold them back? And this game, despite, I'm like not hating on the visuals as much as others, but like definitely seeing the compromises being made, right? Like,
yeah.
Doesn't it feel held back because it's supposed to work on Xbox One? Like, how is that even like deniable anymore?
Well, it's hard to tell, and I said this on the video with Brad, and it's very, very true. And you just said it, Huber, right? Like, I reserve judgment until I get it in my hands and I can really put it through its paces, because sometimes there have been plenty of times where things haven't shown well in a trailer and I've played them and I'm like, oh, now I get what they're trying to do. Because I feel like the language that they're using is very different from what I saw in the gameplay trailer, where like, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to do more than like quickly pulling up a map and like killing some grunts and brutes for me to be like, oh, okay, this is this, you know, spiritual successor to Halo Combat Evolved that you were talking about. It's Halo 1 without walls. It's going to be this more open, different thing. Like, I don't think that effectively comes across in the gameplay demo. It does a little bit, but not, I think, in the way that you want, where you're like, oh, I understand the scope of this thing. I think it is hard to watch that trailer and go, oh, I understand the scope of this thing. And I just, on a personal level, I wish that scope came across a bit more effectively. However, something that I want to throw into the mix of this conversation, and please bring up the open world, you know, point if you would like, but something I want to throw into this conversation is Call of Duty Modern Warfare, right? Where, you know, that came out, that was successful, but honestly, from an outside perspective...
The remake or the original Modern
I'm sorry, the new one.
The new
one, Call of Duty Modern Warfare.
Got it.
You know, I know you really liked it, Huber, but from an outside perspective, it feels like all anyone's talking about is Warzone, and that is something that can be completely detached from the rest of Modern Warfare and is free. And it just really feels like it is dominating the conversation with that game. Mm-hmm. And I wonder, you know, if all of the stuff that we're saying about Halo and like whether it succeeds or fails, like maybe that stuff is kind of trivial if this free-to-play multiplayer can kind of take off in the way that Warzone does and really capture an audience, possibly even a new audience, especially at the launch of a new console. Like, is that a possibility?
Absolutely.
Yeah. We were, I feel like we slightly touched upon it, maybe not as in depth, when we talk about the Destiny versus Halo argument, that all it takes is for this multiplayer to catch on for whatever reason, and all of a sudden it's the dominant thing. People are just, I mean, who cares about the rest of Halo Infinite if everyone's dying to play this? It's the most streamed game, most played game.
Right.
There you go. That's all that matters. And I think that's great. I would assume 343 will roll with that and continue to foster multiplayer and maybe double down and focus on it. Whether or not that's the other part of the equation, is whether or not they take advantage of that. I think they're at least smart enough and capable enough to do that. So absolutely, all the stuff that we're talking about, oh, it's failing to illustrate even if the final release comes out, man, this open world stuff was like whatever, you know, it was a good game, but they never really nailed this. But wow, the multiplayer, holy crap, it's like one of the best multiplayer games. Who cares? You know, play this.
So the trick there is, what does it need to do to grab onto an audience? What does it need to do to be exciting on Twitch? What does it need to do to, I think, maybe combat, you know, any notions that people have with the visuals or gameplay or campaign or whatever? Like, what does a free-to-play... I guess to sum it up, what does a free-to-play multiplayer Halo need to do to be huge?
I hate to say this because I like variety. Warzone killed Modern Warfare for me. What I loved about Warzone or Modern Warfare, Ben, was the variety of modes. So many different modes. Nobody plays them. Now it's just one mode, dude. That's all this game needs, is one killer mode that people love to watch, people love to play.
What does that look like in the Halo world, though? Is
it like a team-based battle royale? I don't know. I have no idea, but because now the game is open world, so like, will a battle royale mode be there? Probably. Will they have their own unique Halo twist on it? Probably. Like, yeah, I think one mode is enough.
I feel like, I mean, obviously it could be as simple as a battle royale, but I'd really love to see more of like a battleground type map where you start, maybe it's like 3 teams of like a large group of players, 3 or 4 teams of large group of players where they start in different locations, and it's about taking over like bases and like fighting for that space. So whoever controls this, you now have an advantage and stuff. So it funnels people into these firefights where they got to fight for control of a spot. And this is all WoW, Wrathy base, like this the old WoW like PvP map stuff, like that. Like just make it like that where you're fighting for control of a battlefield. It's not fighting to the last person, let people respawn. It's about like maybe a score or some resource based thing where after a time limit or someone hits a certain threshold, they've won. You know, whoever conquers the whole map or something.
You're making me think of Warzone in Halo 5, but the thing that kind of undercut that mode was the card system and the consumables for stuff.
Jesus, I forgot about that. See, I really want to stress that is my expectations for this franchise have been so bottom of the barrel. Like, I don't want to sound harsh, but I really don't like Halo 4 and 5, like, at all. Like, I never need to play those games ever again.
Sure.
I just don't think they're great games, personally.
Yeah,
So my expectations have been so low, bottom. So when I say, it didn't look terrible, to me, it's because my expectations are the absolute lowest they could possibly be.
It's hard because I think people have a lot of very valid criticisms about Halo 5. I still have a blast playing it, even though I think those criticisms are valid, and I totally understand wanting to see a shift away from that, and I think that would be a good thing. I still had those games still felt good to me, at least on a very basic level. The sprint debate, I think, is fascinating. I think people who are against sprint have a very good point. I think the storytelling in Halo 5 is a mess. I think that is absolutely true. But I'm not somebody that hates Halo 5 in its entirety.
I don't hate it.
Right.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel special, Ben.
Sure.
Halo 4 and 5...
I think that's a great point.
Yeah. That's where I'm coming from, is 4 and 5 just feel like if these games should not be swimming in sevens. We have to hold them to the highest possible standard because they're first-party marquee system sellers.
Right.
So my criticism needs to be a little higher, just like I am higher expectations for God of War or Uncharted. Like, this is Xbox. This is Halo. So 4 and 5, like, this franchise just hasn't felt special in so long.
I want to hang on that point, right? Because Halo 3 just released on PC. And I've been playing some Halo 3, both.
God, I love that game.
And it's like, it's amazing how amazing it still is, right? And I'm sure nostalgia plays some factor into that, but I don't think you can write it off as just nostalgia, where it's like, there is nothing that feels quite like this, just in the way that things are balanced and how well those maps are designed. Like, you can jump into a game of Halo 3 right now and have a blast. Even against, contemporary standards, I think there is still something remarkably special about Halo 3. That game is fantastic and holds up. And I think, it's not just a multiplayer thing. I think that campaign is still a blast to go through. Yeah.
Dude, I know other games have done it. Another thing they could borrow for multiplayer to make it, I think, would work really well. The concept I was talking about. Borrow a little bit from RTS/MOBA in terms of resource spawning stuff. Make it so that like you have to fight to acquire enough resources to like spawn warthogs and then banshees
Planet-side vibes or something
like vehicles, which help you travel faster across the map to get to your to get to things faster. So like the race to do that, and or like maybe you need to push a base, so you got to spawn a tank or something. So you got to like push, that I want that. I like those and like if they want to push scale, maybe it doesn't work in the single player. It could work in the multiplayer by having massive maps or something like that. That'd be insane.
I'm really interested to see how the grappling hook translates to a multiplayer environment and what that means for traversal, what that means for player interaction, what that means for player and vehicle interaction. Very, very curious.
Probably just some cooldown ability.
It is, but like,
how that changes up multiplayer matches.
How that changes,
for sure.
Just how you, because Halo is about that sandbox, right? And I'm interested to see how this particular element folds into the sandbox.
Totally.
Are we ready for some emails?
Quick shout out to that pilot, though. I know, no one's as hyped as on that pilot.
Yeah, the pilot.
But The pilot really spoke to me, man. Just want to shout that out.
Yeah.
Cool character. I'm invested.
Yeah. Our first email comes in from Matthew. Hey, Ben and panel. Everyone always talks about how great Xbox Game Pass is. It's got tons of games. Day one releases for first party, just one subscription fee. It's often lauded as the best deal for gamers. No argument here. One thing that I never hear talked about, though, is how seemingly using this to get people used to the digital future. I never hear how this is getting us further away from physical games. What do you all think? Am I off the mark, or do you agree?
It's industry trends for sure. Go digital future. I mean, the PS5 is going to have an all digital version. So I think I don't know if that was their intent. But yeah, I mean, I say all the time how I'm going more digital with my games. So I think it's just a byproduct of it. I don't know if that was their intention with Game Pass.
Definitely. I mean, it's definitely trending that way. And I do think that this facilitates that transition and lowers the barrier for people who just want to sample it, because you come in at a low monthly fee, try it out. You're not, it's less than buying a full game, like full price AAA game. So try it out for a month. If you like it, you got your taste. You're now hooked, and you welcome to part of the all digital, future. Versus if you don't like it, you just back off and stuff. So I mean, I think that's kind of brilliant. Like, I mean, they weren't the first to think of it, but it is a very elegant solution to getting people eased into that. So yeah, I think it's a good solution in that regard.
I have gone digital. By and large, I almost never buy physical games anymore, and I used to be a big proponent of physical games, and I think I still have sympathy in a way for people that swear by it. I understand that desire. I do think it is nice to have options, but sometimes I just don't know how to feel, in the sense of, like, some things just feel so inevitable, and while I get wanting options and I want people to be catered to their preference, I also think that, like, at some point, right, like, things are just going to change. And so I don't know, I guess, how much of a stand I could take, in the sense that, like, yes, it is pushing us more towards a digital future, but I don't know if that is something that I can be angry about when it does in some way feel inevitable, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I feel bad for the players that only buy a few games a year. Because they, like my friend Grumbum, only buys a couple games a year. He goes physical every time because it's a little more special. Right. You're buying The Last of Us, or you're buying Ghost of Tsushima, like 1 or 2, 3 games a year. You want it to be a box. I think the more games you buy, the more, like, I'm whatever. Get digital, physical, doesn't even matter to me anymore.
Right.
Because it's just like getting games all the time.
Right. And I think that is such a good point, and why my perception of it has changed is, as I've gotten more embedded in video games, and as, I guess, money has been less of a concern when it comes to buying games, it's just like, like, I just want to be able to buy this and download this so we can stream it immediately, or I'm going to talk about that on Frame Trap tomorrow. I want to be able to play this at 9 p.m. the night. Like, let's save time, not waiting on a delivery or going to a store or whatever. And so there's a huge convenience factor that I think for this lifestyle makes sense.
I think that's such an important factor to all this, as you said, convenience. Absolutely.
Right. But it is fascinating to me where, something that Microsoft got so much shit for was their push towards this more digital online future, right? And I don't see really any pushback against the option of a PS5 being diskless. And it is, fair to bring up that it's an option, right? You still can get a disc-based PS5. But I guess what I'm just trying to say is, like, it's remarkable how much opinion changes in the span of a few years.
I also think that to keep in mind is the option still exists for both.
Yes.
Whereas Xbox One was trying to force you.
Right. It is not the same situation.
You have no option. This is going to be the way it is.
Right.
You're out of options.
It was a combination of not giving people choice and ahead of its time. It was too soon. It hadn't been proven yet. It was like streaming video and music was just at that point where it proven itself for a few years there. Games weren't at that point. Now we've seen, as you said, Ben, the convenience. People get the convenience and like the convenience. And it's like everything that comes with games, like art books, music, they all go digital now too. You can like all soundtracks are on Spotify or whatever, digital services. Art books are digital PDFs now, and like you just have your computer or laptop, whatever, in front of you. You can open all that stuff up. It's I gotta go dig through my closet for my whole collection of this art book to look up this thing, or as you said, swapping games. It comes down to convenience is just consistently expanding its appeal, whereas the detractors from this are just at some time they could alter the content or they could delist it. Like those are real issues. And I do think
those are valuable concerns.
They're valuable concerns, but I think those are getting to a point where they're not outweighing the benefits of that. But as long as there's choice, I think though if Sony said we are going all digital, I think that while there wouldn't be as much backlash, there would definitely still be articles right now about it might be too soon for that, Sony. Maybe you should rethink that.
Yeah, I think that was very well said and articulated, Damiani. Our next email comes in from Paulo. Timed exclusive updates. Timed exclusives are a part of the industry. Timed exclusivity for games, for DLC, it's par for the course. But something recent stuck in my craw, and I'm a salty dog. Tetris Effect Connected. It adds 10 new levels and multiplayer to Tetris Effect, coming exclusively to Xbox and the Microsoft Store on PC. The connected content will be a free update to existing owners, PS4 and Epic Games Store, but it won't be until summer 2021. Timed exclusivity for updates? Come on! I guess it can fall under the exclusive DLC category. Is this crazy to anyone else, or is it just me? I think something that is worth pointing out that's not mentioned in this email is Tetris Effect was exclusive to PS4 for a brief period of time, and now it is getting a timed exclusive expansion update for Xbox and Microsoft Store.
That's weird. I feel like if something started on a system or was first on a system, and especially if it has maybe potentially the larger install base, I'm not a fan of this. I hate this idea. I mean, it might be a necessary evil for some things, but at least do it on the platform that it either originated on or, has that's where the community is. Fragment, I hate this. I don't like this. This is one of the dirtier things, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is disgusting.
I completely agree when it comes to updates, for sure. That's super annoying. I condemn it.
There's something so satisfying about you saying that.
Yeah.
I condemn it.
I condemn this. I will say on the flip side of just game releases in general, there are so many that I care less and less about when anything comes out because there's always something to play. But when it's a game you love and it's a timed update, that is in an entirely different situation, and I condemn it.
Right. I think the severity depends on your investment, right? Where it's like, well, I'll just wait until the summer. But then there are people that are like, Tetris Effect is my favorite game. Yeah, I have it on this platform and I've got to wait. I do think that is needlessly frustrating.
So frustrating. Yeah, especially because you were saying it came out on PS4 first. So if you have it there,
right?
Like, what the hell? Trying to make us double dip in the shadiest way possible.
I condemn it.
I condemn it.
Our next email comes in from Sampo. Sampo asks multiple questions. I think we're just going to take the first one here. Greetings, allies. What is your Swimmin' in Sevens game of the generation? Shout out to Huber. What game that was generally well received but didn't receive unanimously glowing reviews that you absolutely love? For me, Hellblade is one of the most emotional, trippy, thought-provoking, depressing, and enthralling games I've played. I don't even think the game is very fun to play, but it's compelling as hell and an incredibly worthwhile experience. What say you?
Straight up, Days Gone. I don't know what was going on when this game came out. Everyone was like, it's fine. Mm-hmm. Everyone. Jones was like, it's cool. It's good. It's fine. I'm pretty sure the Metacritic is like 70-something, unless I'm wrong. I should look it up. But I feel like the reception of Days Gone versus my love for it was the biggest gap in recent memory. Like, I love Days Gone to death. I love that game. So that's just the first one that popped into my head.
Nice.
Man. Trying to look up some stuff here to jog my memory because I'm very bad at this. I always don't have
71 Metacritic for Days Gone.
Really?
You nailed your swimming then.
That is crazy to me. God, I love that game.
Perfect.
Dude.
Yeah, I was trying to see what Gravity Rush 2 got, but not coming up for some reason. Maybe my internet is Metacritic. Let's see. Gravity Rush 2. I feel like this got to be higher than 7 something. No, it's an 8. All right, it's an 8, so it's not my swimming in 7s because I would have gone there for sure.
Hey, you know what? I think we can be a little bit loose with it.
It counts.
If you want to spend,
it was definitely underappreciated.
Sure, I think that's fair.
Because the team, because they're moving on from Gravity Rush. That team has already been repurposed for something else, I believe. I don't forget what it is, but they were previously Team Siren. They might even be working on another Siren game or something. I don't know, but that was just like that was a game that I really enjoyed. I felt like it was an improvement over the original. The original was pretty good to me as well, but I just think the concept, the gravity manipulation stuff might have, I don't know if it didn't click with people. It's a game that doesn't do anything particularly exceptional, I think, other than maybe its art style, and its world, like the presentation of its world, because like the combat, even the gravity stuff isn't perfect. It's still janky at some times, and there are points, especially they added like the 2 different types of gravity, like the Jupiter and the other one, which is like lighter, so you can go like floaty or super heavy, like impactful jumps. It didn't really mesh together very well, but I still had such a great time in that world, and the story. I really like the story in that game. I like how it's presented, and the environments in that game, just really good environments. I think people just get a little upset about the lack of activities to do in that game. It's a lot of the quests are just go here, advance the story, go here, and then go fight in an instance area, like a dungeon type environment for part of the mission, and there wasn't a lot of variety to that. But I just wanted another one. I was like, please, can I, like, I felt like they were going somewhere with it, and it had potential to be something so much more, and it's not going to get that chance.
Now keep fighting that fight. Gravity Rush definitely deserves more. You are 100% right, Damiani.
My number one, I just refuse to believe, like, I disregard the 76 Metacritic is The Evil Within 2.
Evil Within 2? So you deny
like,
that
I deny that it
I
is.
condemn
Like,
it.
that, dude, The Evil Within 2 is one of my all-time favorite video games ever.
Yeah.
Like, this is top 3 survival horror games for me. I'm shocked that series didn't blow up more. Like, with how different 1 and 2 are. 1 is just classic old school survival horror. 2 is new school survival horror. Like, I'm sad about it. Like, you talk about getting a third one, Damiani.
Yeah.
Like,
You just want DLC.
Yeah, I just need DLC. Anything.
So I'm actually shocked that this has a 72 on Metacritic, but Earth Defense Force 5. I'm not going to sit here and say that it is amazing, but goddamn, we talked about self-awareness, right? And Earth Defense Force is a series that at its best is so self-aware and just, it's so much fun just shooting the limbs off of giant frogs and watching a sea of purple blood fall down. It's fun when you just fight God at the end. Like, it's just so insane and fun and dumb, and I love it to pieces. Of course it has, it looks terrible. It doesn't always, run the best, and there are very fair criticisms to levy against it, but we're getting more, and that makes me very happy. Swimming. It is to me the epitome of swimming.
Yeah. That's sick. Defense Force.
Yep.
It is the pool that we swim in. Like,
everything else could just fit inside of it. Yeah. I think that is going to do it for Frame Trap, thank you to everybody that wrote in. If you would like to send in an email, please email askeasyallies@gmail.com. One more time, that email address is askeasyallies@gmail.com. Huge thank you to Michael Huber and Michael Damiani for joining me on this episode. And yeah, if you want to find out more about us, once again, go to patreon.com/easyallies. Until next time.